We shouldn't be punching people. But if you punch me, I want to punch you back. You're an adult.
We are an all-female company.
With your penis.
If women speak up, a lot of the times people shout them down, even if they're encouraged to speak up.
42% of women say they have faced discrimination in the workplace. 25% say they have earned less than a man who's doing the same job. 40% of women earn more than the average man. And in 2022, women were the sole breadwinner of 16% of heterosexual couples. It's important we define something as contentious as gender bias, especially because we look the way we do. So Oxford defines gender bias as favoritism toward or prejudice against a particular gender. This can show up in many ways, but it is usually in reference to men's treatment toward women at work. But I want to start with two examples of women coming into a male-dominated environment who handled it very differently and had very different outcomes. Circling back to the guy I just mentioned, my supervisor with the plastic forks, he and I worked at this rebar shop, and this rebar shop had undergone a change of management. Now, the change of management brought in a woman branch manager. There are 80 men who work here.
Oh, fuck.
Less than, I think it was less than 6 women who worked there, and they were all in the office. So it was 80 men, 6 women. They were all in the office. And and we were fabricators. We were dirty, we were calloused, we were sweaty. We said a lot of hard C's, a lot of hard T's, a lot of F's, probably some other salacious things that we probably shouldn't have been saying. And she came into this. Now, she came in knowing that she was coming in underhanded, knowing that she was coming in as the underdog. So one of the first things she did was she just flat out said, I want to treat you as equals. I'm not your manager. I'm not your leader. I'm not your supervisor or anything like that. She's like, I'm here to lead you, but I have to learn from you first. Yeah. And so me at 25-ish, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I was cocky as shit back then, by the way. Like, right. So I was like, I was a bit of an arrogant tool.
Yeah.
I didn't yet necessarily understand nuance. I didn't have like a connection of wisdom or anything between my knowledge bits. Yeah. So when I stood up a little straighter, I was like, this is interesting. And I started to pay attention more immediately to what she was doing and what she was saying. Well, what she ended up doing for the first roughly month she was there, she would come out onto the floor with us and perform the work with us.
Hell yeah.
For like 3-4 hours a week, an hour at a time. This is work that I did for 8 years, and I am by far and away one of the most experienced rebar fabricators, probably like top 50th percentile in the country, just because of that, because it's got such a high turnover rate. In fact, I came across an old job post for an identical job at a different company. Yeah. And I screenshotted it because in the screenshot, or in the, I'll put it up here. I'll have to find it in my phone. I'm not going to dig for it right now, but in the job application, it said this is a very physically demanding job. After about 2 weeks, you will no longer be sore all over your body. You will have become accustomed to the intense amount of physical labor you have to do throughout the day. Woo. And I did that shit for years. So she came out onto the floor and was doing this with us. Now, granted, I'll admit, most of what she did got in the way. Yeah. But
as newbies always
she wasn't trained.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. Yeah. She was in the way no more than any new guy was. No more than I was when I started. So it wasn't like she was an inconvenience. It was like she was coming on the floor to train. She didn't need to understand the specifications, the specifics on how to run these machines. She just need to understand the general sort of jib about it. You know, like how hard is it? What can we expect out of these machines? Like, what am I observing you doing that may be enhanced with ergonomics or cooling or heating or whatever. She did this for like a month, and then she didn't do it anymore. I don't blame her for 2 reasons. One, she is a branch fucking manager with a corporate overlord and the nation's largest steel manufacturer above her. Mm-hmm. She has a full-time job. She does not need to be on the floor, but she came out and did it. I have a funny feeling, though, she initially stopped coming on the floor because of how hard the work was. She's an office worker. She was never built, never used to, never accustomed to doing this kind of work. And I have a funny feeling that doing that, 3 or 4 hours a week worth of work. She was also not like a fit woman.
Yeah.
I have a funny feeling that probably put a little bit more of a soreness on her than she potentially anticipated.
Yeah.
So either way, even if one or both of those are untrue, I really don't care why she stopped. She ended up being a really good, really well-respected, really productive leader.
Yeah. She's humble, and she tried to lead from the front right off the bat. Like, she
That's
at least
exactly
knows
it.
what
She
you were
came in
going
hot.
through.
Now, I do want to say that she didn't come in with the attitude of like she's sitting at the table with the boys now. It was not like that. At least it didn't feel like that from my perspective. Again, I look this way, but the way I perceived it was she's coming in legitimately as an equal. I will, however, throw this caveat out there. She did have some more traditionally masculine qualities. She had she's a bit broad in the shoulders. She just had a bit of a like way she walked and that she carried herself. She was also a lesbian. That may have contributed to it, but I wasn't like I didn't mention earlier. It's really not that important to the story, not to this story. There are stories that is relevant towards, but this isn't the day for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, she just came in and she was a badass, dude. Like that was it. Like she just came in. She didn't know anything about the industry. She didn't know anything about rebar. She just knew a little bit about management. And she was like, let's go in here and see what these boys are up to. Yeah. Now, 4 months? I don't even know. Several months later, a new woman comes in. And this woman, I believe, is actually a culprit for me being fired from this place. Another story for another time. But she came in hot and heavy with, this is how we do it by the book. I know how to do this. She came in just like, no, you're running your machine wrong. Like, really, Frankie, how about you step up there and you show me how the fuck it's done then?
I just realized Frankie works for both genders.
Yeah. yeah, they sure do. Hey, I'll work for any gender that's going to pay me right.
I don't give a fuck. It could be a freaking horse actually running it. I don't care as long as I'm treated well.
I would love it.
Yeah,
I would love it. That sounds wonderful. What, I have to give my boss some oats twice a day? Fucking great. Yeah. That's one boss I would actually clean up shit after.
Yeah. What's the worst he could say? Nay?
Hey, yeah, he's not allowed to any of my meetings where I need to like vote on something, but maybe if I need some simple math done, he can count to 3 or 4 for me, you know?
But shit, no, okay, so already the difference is stark. You had A example, which is like a literal A+ example of someone who is like, hey, I'm not here to fucking boss you around. I'm here to learn what you're doing, do a good job. Just like you, basically. Then this other person comes in and is like, fuck you, I know how to do this better. And like, I'm gonna be honest, I've been through a couple of different, let's see, hospitality, retail, and then digital marketing. Every time I've run into that in my world, my immediate reaction is I bristle up like, who the hell are you?
Here's the thing that this is very apt, actually. I've kind of lived under this dictum that regardless of who you are, if you come at me like a man, you better take it like a man. Which means if you come at me insulting me like a man, I want to throw it back at you like you are a man. If you come at me punching me like a man, I want to punch you back like a man. This is 2024. We're both human. Yeah. I don't want to do that to anyone. We're all fucking adults. Like we shouldn't be punching people. But if you punch me, I want to fucking punch you back. You're an adult. You can take it because you're inviting that from me. Yeah. And that's exactly what she did. She came in and she invited aggression. Whereas the first example, she came in and she was inviting advice. She goes, I need to learn from you in order to lead you. And that was like right on. The other one was like, I know how to do this, therefore I am managing you. And I said, fuck off.
And that means they're not going to listen.
So all that is to say, sometimes gender bias can be mitigated. It will never be zero. It will never be zero. It can't be zero simply because we are human. We are simply flawed creatures. We have unconscious bias, which the term alone makes me cringe, mostly because it's just used wrongly a lot and it's used by a lot of the wrong people, but it does exist.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I just, man.
Yeah, no. Well, then, so I've the more I think about this, and again, we should revisit this with the teacher crew, because a chunk of them are women, as you would imagine, because there's a gender bias in that industry in a different regard. Of
a massive gender bias, especially in the younger grades, like preschool and kindergarten teachers. If you're a man, you're met almost with hostility a lot of times. Like, oh, hold on, who do you think you are being around a young child like that with your penis and your okay, no, you're actually like a really good caregiver and nurturer. Oh,
yeah, okay, there we go.
Sorry.
No, it's so one thing I've seen that's very interesting. I'm kind of piecing this together. It's like watching the Barbie movie and being like, oh no, it's not satire. That was actually accurate.
That's why I didn't get it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Sales teams in the hyper aggressive digital marketing world and stuff like that, always men. And they were the douchebaggy men, like, sup, bro, want some za?
Yeah.
But customer service, almost always women. And then an interesting piece I got to see shift over time. So, like in hospitality land, most of our reservation agents were women. We also kind of knew statistically women were less likely to get yelled at than men, except if you have a shitty dude on the line and then you need a dude to talk that person down, because there's another example of a gender bias sneaking into shit. But like, it has been very rare that I have had the same title as a woman that I have worked with and not been paid more. And the excuse was always experience, but I can really freaking safely tell you that there were cases where people had 2 years of experience on me in a completely different, like, similar, same level of pay depending on what level they were at in their career, but the vertical. So like, I was in SEO, this gal was in paid ads. She had 2 years on me in paid ads, should have been paid more. Nope. I came in day one newbie, made more than her, and she was pissed about it, and as she freaking should have been. I was even like, fuck, I'm so sorry, like, this sucks ass. Or another transition I got to see, digital marketing when I first started was mostly old guys. And there were a few women, but they definitely felt like they were on the outs. And again, the customer service team, primarily women. I was the only dude on that team. And everyone was like, wow, we're shocked that a guy got through the process. And I was like, I worked hotels, I'm pretty good at this. And then I swapped over to the tech side. And then when I jumped companies over the past few years, the last company I worked at in office, it was mostly women. Now, there's a really creepy part about that. At first, I was like, this is really fucking cool. Like, most of my peers are women. I tend to get along with women better anyway, less pissing contests. And, like, this is neat. It's like the workplace of the future. And then I found out that most of them were still dramatically underpaid for their experience. And also that the guy in charge of hiring, probably the only reason I got hired is because there wasn't an attractive woman in the interviews.
Oh, that's a dirty thought, especially in your industry, because being in tech and marketing and stuff, it is a female I don't know if it's dominant, but female heavy at least industry.
Oh, it's very dominated. Like, and honestly, I get it. It tends to be a lot of stuff that historical gender bias has thrown women into. Like, well, if you're gonna do art, then you need to do productive art, so you can do brand logos and designs for companies. So there's kind of that natural pipeline. But it's interesting that the one piece that threw me off was I got to experience once an interview where the whole dynamic was shifted, and it was such an icky feeling because I couldn't be mad about it. I just had to realize, like, that's what it feels like, and it happened to me only once. I got into an interview, literally on the job description, it was like, we are an all-female company. And I was like, I don't know, I need a job, so let's see what happens. Got into the interview, and the gal literally was like, yeah, you're the only guy we're going to interview for this role, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I felt a little bit like a DEI excuse in that situation, where I was the one dude that needed to be interviewed. The interview was very casual to the point where I knew I was just kind of being toyed with, and like, I did good, I answered the right questions and whatnot, but she basically at the end was like, yeah, we'll go ahead and let you know, but thank you for taking the time. And I was just sitting there, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not getting hired because I'm a dude. I'm not getting hired because my gender is different than the norm. Ew. Oh, it feels like shit. It's horrible. And women go through this constantly. And as guys, we got to be aware of it. I don't think we'll ever be fully aware of it. Whisper says you were the diversity interview. Ew. Yeah. Yeah.
I had I was just talking about this before we went live with you. I had a very similar interview, actually. I was at the time I was a freelance writer, and I was looking for something a little bit more stable, so I was applying some comparable remote work. and I had applied to this LGBT company.
Yeah.
Not sure what they did, but it was some kind of LGBT website.
Yeah.
And I believe it was a kind of writer position or something along those lines. Like I said, it was a relevant thing. Anyway, my resume is largely production, but not solely.
Yeah.
I've sold insurance, been a travel agent. I have been a personal trainer. I've done construction.
Yeah.
I have been a freelance writer. I have been a CNA very briefly, but I've been a retail manager. And most of those are honestly in the last 7 years. And it was a bit of a tumultuous time. So I was already a little on edge when I went into this interview.
Yeah.
I wasn't aggressive. I don't think I was anyway. But as the interview went on, I could feel the edge start coming on because I realized by the casual nature, as you just mentioned, that I wasn't getting the job and that I was just there. Now, looking back on it, I think she was just curious about who I was, what I looked like, and what I wanted with this company because I came from, like I said, on my resume, it was all of those things I just listed, and that I was from this small town in the middle of nowhere, flyover state. She probably just wanted to know, is this guy trolling me?
Yeah, like is he?
And then we got to talking, and it was yeah, we got to talking too, and it was a good talk. It was a good conversation. She was lively, I was lively. We were both energetic and engaging. And at the end of it, essentially, it just felt like she wanted to hear about my work experience, but she had no intention of hiring me. She was just purely curious.
Yeah.
And it was, in my opinion, by the vibe of the last part of the interview, it felt like that. It felt like I was the gender token, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, that is by far and away the most benign story that there is out there
both
of gender. They really are, but that's because we're on the opposite end, right? Like we're on the big end, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, I have never been afraid of sexual assault.
Yeah.
I'm large. I can take care of myself. I know this. I've been hit on by gay guys who are also large and imposing and all this. And then it was never a physical threat to me. I never felt physically threatened.
Yeah.
Certainly not in the workplace. But
yeah,
when those workplace constraints are put on you, like, I feel like those, how am I trying to put this? We may have to come back to this point.
That's fair.
We'll make note of this and come back to it. Oh, I do have another point though. So did we didn't read this earlier yet. Had a principal that would only talk to and take suggestions from women or from male staff in the department. And I was the only exception because I was in the art department. I assume you're probably the only one in the art department, if that is the case with your principal. I was, I'm not trying to take up too much airtime here with myself, but I was watching a TED Talk with Sarah Sanford. She, for the life of me, I don't recall exactly who she works for, but essentially she's in charge of putting women in the workplace appropriately and all this stuff. She had a very similar experience where she was talking about her own proposal that she had spent almost a year perfecting on how to hire more women was given to her by her male manager because another male manager had presented it to him. And he goes, there's some good stuff in here. You should look at it. So he handed her own proposal back to her.
Oh, I'd be murderous. Holy shit.
Women have the patience, man. No, they don't. No, they don't. I shouldn't say that because that's encouraging misbehavior. But man, when you're put in that position, first of all, how do you recognize that position is or that moment is happening as the man in that position in that moment?
I don't think a lot of guys get it, and I understand why. Like when you're in it, you don't notice it because you're like, well, surely it's going fine for me. You're just making this up. Yeah, you're just having problems. Don't blame your professional struggles on your shit.
Yeah. Don't get your panties in a bunch.
Yeah, I had to work my way up too, and like that's the shit that feeds into this, like, and this bias pops up in all throughout society. Like, two points here. One, an anecdote, and one, just the reality of, if women speak up, a lot of the times people shout them down, even if they're encouraged to speak up. And then I distinctly remember in my past, I was asked to write a document on gender equality in, I think I was 16, 17. And I wrote the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, and I wrote the whole thing from like my point of view as a teenage guy, and I was like, you know, we live in this amazing nation, and men and women are equal, and this is that, da, 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 da. And my teacher had a master's degree in Middle Eastern history, and my mom's a wicked smart person as well. Turn this in, and the teacher just puts the glasses down and goes, "Mom, did you read this?" My mom goes, "Yeah." He goes, "And you agree with this?" He goes, "No." And she turned and looked at me and was like, "Do you understand why your mom disagrees?" And I was like, "No, why? What's going on?" And they had the biggest, deepest sigh and proceeded to explain to me like how different society was for them, of just everything is harder to do. A lot of people look down on you. It's pervasive. Like, my mom knows how to drive a stick shift. She has always known how to drive a stick shift. She can drive sports cars.
That's hot.
She married a lumberjack. She was driving, I don't remember. It was a Miata. She was driving a Miata. The Miata broke down. Like, literally, I think the transmission had just catastrophically failed. So she just
you can't drive a stick that well.
Well, no, it was a factory fault. But she's pulled over and she's like calling my dad and being like, "Hey, just as a heads up, the car is fucking dead. I called the tow truck, but like, this happened." And some guy pulled up and was like, "Oh, let me help you with that, sweetheart. You taking your husband's toy out for a ride?" And she was like, "No, the transmission blew. Like, it's factory default. The store knows it. They're coming to handle it." And he's like, "Ha, sure it is. I'm sure you know how to drive this thing." And like, just talk down to her. Oh, actually, another fun one. She met Steven Seagal. She was a vet
On
tech.
purpose?
No, because she hates him now, like with a passion. So she used to work with this vet group that was one of the first groups in Southern California to have a state-of-the-art horse operatory table, which you basically knock out the horse on the floor, and then the table rises up out of the ground. And that would allow you then to, like, if you needed to put them up in a sling or anything like that, you could do what you needed to do. And it wasn't just it came up to a level, you could adjust the level. Like, this was fancy tech. So everyone came to this guy's veterinary practice. Steven Seagal shows up one day and has his horse there. And my mom is a vet tech. So she's there to take a look at the horse and see what's going on. She goes to walk up to him. He looks her up and down and basically goes, "I will not have some woman tell me what is going on with my animal." And my mom was like, "Well, this woman isn't going to do shit for you," and slammed the clipboard in his chest and walked off and ditched his ass. Like, the shit that they have.
Yeah, I mean, like, what else is... Oh man, well then if you act out like that, then you're irrational and you're a frenzied woman or whatever. Like,
yeah, how dare you have emotions?
Yeah, like, why don't you just like a man wouldn't have acted out like that.
Yeah, God, this is exactly why you're having career troubles. Like, fuck, it's so, I mean, patriarchy patronizing, but like, it is. And I think that's why the Barbie movie was so powerful. Honestly, like, it showed.
You just can't get this movie out of your head, man.
No, it was good because it made me so viscerally uncomfortable, more than any horror film ever did. Because watching the Barbie world and being like, "Ha ha ha, it's just Barbie world. Of course it's like this." And then transitioning into, like, they show the real world and it's not a joke. They just show the real world and you're like, it was right there the whole fucking time.
That's why people got mad about it, though. That they got mad about it because they're like, "Oh no, that's not me. That ain't me. That's a man-hating movie over there."
Yeah, fuck that. It's actually really.
I'm just
really
kidding.
God, no. Whisper says, "My mom always had men trying to help her back her gooseneck horse trailer into spots, but she knew her truck and trailer better. I've seen her put that truck and trailer in spots that the men then jaw drop and walk away.
Backing up a trailer, I've never backed up a gooseneck, but backing up a trailer is kind of fun. I like that. It's a nice little dance. Got to go the opposite way first and then sneak it in. Yeah. I'm not good at it. Yeah. I am capable. That's all I'll ever be at backing a trailer, but that's all I need to be.
Yeah, no, I feel that. But like, yeah, no, the pervasiveness is amazing, and the fact that, at least in the case of like Barbie movie, it made it so real that I could sit there and like feel the chills go down my spine and just be like, wow, that's something we need more in society. And the hard part is women are basically screwed. Like, they almost have to deal with men, wait for them to catch up emotionally, culturally, because men run most everything. And now it's switching.
That is changing.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I'll be honest.
That is changing.
Of my best coworkers,
far more women now have a college education than men do. In fact, back in the 71, I believe, was the stat that I had heard. When you compare that to last year, women are further ahead than men now in education than men were ahead of women back in the 70s. Yeah. And what that is actually doing is disrupting a shitload of things societally, because women are now empowered because the brakes have been taken off of them. And there's a lot of people who think, oh, well, now women can go super fast. What about me? A lot of men are saying this, not all of them. A lot of them are like, okay, well, hold on. That's happening, sure, but like, slow down so I can lead. Like, well, how about you just speed the fuck up? How about you try a little harder? How about you try to be a little more disciplined, a little bit cleaner around the edge?
Let go of the desire for control. Yeah, like let go of that desire for control over what's changing. Like, women have always been, we're two halves of the same whole. We're not a different species.
I think giving up that desire for control, that's, first of all, the difference. There is a difference between power and control. Power, it's not like, control is something that you impose on someone. Power is something that you have around someone. I think one of the best things we could do to garner that result, though, would be to learn to listen a little bit better. It's a different kind of listening, though. The way you and I listen to each other, it has to be different than the way that I would listen to a female coworker. For instance, like in a meeting, bring women to meetings more often. If it's just a bunch of dudes, they're going to talk about the same thing. And here's the thing about that: like attracts like. So if there's 3 guys in a meeting, there's likely to be a 4th guy eventually, and they're likely to all kind of look alike. They're likely to all kind of be alike. They're likely to all kind of think alike. If you bring women here's the beautiful thing about bringing even one woman to a meeting, though, is it creates tension. Creates tension, because now, get this, the men, whether they know it or not, are making decisions based upon her presence. That tension will benefit that meeting, because that tension will create more careful thought processes and decision-making processes that will inevitably end up in progress, because you're making such careful things, such careful decisions. It's just including them more, man, and then inviting them by name to bring up their ideas, and inviting them by name before you invite the men to bring up their ideas.
That is a really interesting one. So when I was working at this company that was mostly women, we still had the guy who hired them. He was technically second in command, but he acted like he was first in command. His wife ran the show. We all knew that, but he always hired beautiful women. And then there were him and a couple other guys that just always cut off women when they're talking. One guy was just he was the human embodiment of Patrick Star. Like, I shit you not, would sit there in a meeting and be like, so I'm gonna
horseradish is not an instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just like, oh my god, is this such and such agency? No, this is Frankie. God damn, dude. Then we had the dude who was just kind of socially inept. He would just cut you off, and it kind of didn't matter what gender you were, but he would stop faster for men. And then there was the dude who ran everything, and his was I'm in charge and I'm a man, you need to listen to me. And I found the most amazing hack, and this is like something that anyone can use, so like, please use this. Let it happen. Remember who they cut off. Remember the gal that happened to. Let's say it's Frankie. Frankie gets cut off in the middle of an idea.
Omnipresent.
CEO cuts him off. CEO's like, and you go, oh, wow, that's a really interesting thought. Thank you for that. Hey, Frankie, sorry, what were you saying just a moment ago? And then just wait. It's a super passive, polite way to call out someone for being an asshole. And you can see them feel uncomfortable. Like, oh, especially the higher the rank the dude is, the more they're like, but they know if they bring it up. Yeah, but they know if they bring it up in front of the crew, they're going to look like dicks. And then it's empowering for the women because it's like, hey, yeah, we heard you. Got your back. That was fucking rude. Please tell me what you were saying.
There are... Man, that's such a cool...
It's a really fun
I like that.
It's a really
I like
fun
that
one.
because it's fun. I like that because it's socially acceptable. You can't tell someone not to go, okay, hold on. Hold your point. Finish yours. You can't tell someone to do that. You're literally being the good guy. Hold on, Colin. Don't be the good guy here. Let me finish my thought. What the fuck? Like, you can't combat that. It's unassailable.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We need to trademark that maneuver. We need to name it. We'll come up with a name for it soon. I like names.
We'll
like
call it the Colin maneuver. It's not like hitting on someone. It's actually supporting someone. No, it's a push-up bar. It lifts and separates.
Yeah, and another thing you can do is actually measure the amount of time that men and women are talking. There are apps for this, like Woman Interrupted and Gender Timer, who will actually measure. They'll measure the amount of time that men and women are spending talking in meetings. So if you're really going for a more, I don't know if it's equal or equitable here, but if you're really going for equal talk time, we'll say it's equal.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. You could, because like trying to give everyone 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, that's a little cumbersome. That is.
Yeah, that's when you're trying to achieve the metric.
Everyone the same resources to present.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think those tools will be useful. And there are other tools too. There's softwares. There's a software for applications too. This is a bit of a jump in topic here, but applications like Applied, Gap Jumpers, and Unitive are softwares for employers to blind themselves to an applicant's demographic details, like their school, their address, and their gender and their race.
That's super useful.
So then all they're getting is the skills.
And that's how it should be, right? It should be a meritocracy. It doesn't matter color of your skin, where you came from, If you have the ability to do the things, you're the right fit. So the interesting thing is, like, I could see, just like you're saying, if you try to give everyone 5 to 10 minutes to speak, that's cumbersome. Somebody might not need 5 to 10 minutes. So what, you need to be like, if we go that logic, we'd end up being like, okay, I cede my 7.5 remaining minutes to my partner across the way, and then we sound like the government. Instead, you can use those tools to be like, all right, so we listened to this, and it turns out it's like 98% men talking, even though we are 50-50 men and women. Hey, women folk, like real talk, being vulnerable here. Are we talking over you? Are we making it uncomfortable? Like, do you feel like you can't speak? And this comes down to a core piece of employment across the board. If everyone just treated each other well and respected each other, most of these tools would not be needed. Because you'd be able to go up to your boss and be like, hey, sometimes you cut me off and I'm not able to actually finish my train of thought, and it's a little rude. It hurts. Can you not? And your boss should be like, fuck, sorry, my bad. You know what? I do that. I'm going to work on it. That's a good leader. But the people who are like, well, you just need to understand that I've been here longer. I run this company. We started it in my garage when I was 22 years old with so-and-so in the backyard. And so-and-so did this thing and clogged the toilet once. And you didn't go through all that. So, you know what? Maybe you should just listen for a while. It's actually based on a real conversation I got to overhear, and then took said person out for lunch who received that and was like, that was bullshit. Just ignore him.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Also, the toilet clogging part was real too.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought that was an embellishment, actually.
Nope.
I unclogged that toilet. Like, what happened in that bathroom? I unclogged that toilet, dude.
Apparently, like, like boilerplate of the story for safety reasons, but essentially, a dude either got quit or laid off really early on in this company's history, and like apparently he was just known for leaving like the worst shits in the toilet and like just wouldn't flush them ever. So it was just like they were all in this little house doing this together, and then would just go to open the door, and be like, God, why? And he'd just be like, sorry.
Oh man,
Yeah.
just tasting it. It's like thick in the air, like a cake. Just
You're like,
oh god,
it's in my soul.
oh I can feel it in my uvula.
Yeah. No, but yeah.
Why is it so dense and dank?
If people could just respect each other, it would go such a long way. And part of that is like we're talking about power and control. Power is like, hey, yeah, I technically pay you enough to buy a house, have 2 cars, take a great vacation every single year. You generate a bunch of profit for me. We take care of each other. Symbiotic relationship, but I technically have power over you because I can fire you. Control is you need to just listen when I'm talking. Because that's at the core, he's just saying that he's afraid of not being heard, I guess. Like, I don't get it. He was in the position of power. He could have just sat back and let people run things, and the business would have gone better, actually.
Control is a bit of an execution of power in that context.
Yeah, but
you have to have power in order to have control.
It's like hard power. Like, if you use it, it's not good. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do good things. Unlike soft power, where it's like, if you do it right, the people feel like they did it themselves. Big difference.
Or yeah. No, that's a really good point. Like when it's control, there's not a lot of organicness that comes out of that. It's kind of like what it's like is the difference between commanding respect and demanding respect.
Absolutely. I'll follow someone who commands respect, but someone who demands respect, I'm immediately like, fuck you, which actually goes right back.
Respect me. I am the boss.
That goes right back to your first example. Like, first person commanded respect by being in the front line with you. Second person demanded respect by being a bitch about it. And by the way, I think bitch is a gender fluid term. Gender neutral term? Doesn't matter.
By the way,
you could be a dude. I want to call
bitch is the word that got me fired.
Oh wow! I really brought that full circle.
It's not on official corporate documents anywhere. It was a whole other thing, but that is, I think, what got me. I called her a bitch when the wrong person was walking by. But in my defense, man, she was a bitch. Look, here's the thing about what gender bias will look like when, say, hypothetically, we can get rid of all of it, 100% unconscious bias. You will still encounter unpleasantness. You will still be called a bitch if you're being a bitch. You will still be called useless if you're being useless. You'll still be avoided, ignored, and talked around if you have earned that level of disrespect from other people. The only thing we are entitled to as humans, male, female, whatever, is the opportunity to earn someone else's respect. We are never entitled to anything beyond that societally.
Yeah, and a lot of people seem to struggle with that concept. And like that one and the concept of we can disagree and still respect each other, both of those concepts are really hard for a lot of people, but it seems like Americans in general to really accept. I don't know if it's polarized or what, but it's if we have a weaponized culture. But yeah, no, like those are the core aspects of pieces we need to work on. How?
Well, we can do that we can do that by designing a bit of a bias-resistant workplace. I found some measures here that we can actually take to do that, believe it or not.
Oh, I'm down.
Training is an obvious one.
Okay, yeah. Which I want to take as like training is in like I'm new. Let's say I'm new and I'm the manager. I would do exactly what that gal had done. Be like, hey, you know what? I don't understand anything that's going on. Teach me how it works. Show me how this works. And I'd be observing you and be like, cool, okay. This seems like it's hurting you. Can I help with that? So like training to actually understand the role.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because bias training, DEI training, all this stuff, it has actually been shown to be counterproductive, especially in white men, unfortunately. It is shown for them after bias training to actually go out and hire less females and less minorities in general. And so training, that's why I just put it at the top and I just touched on it because it's not the most important one.
Yeah.
But as far as applications go, you can put the gender box at the end of the application or remove it altogether because that would be similar to blind auditions, just like the application I mentioned earlier. applied gap jumpers and unitive, by the way, in case anyone out there owns a business and wants to use something like that.
And you should.
Well, there's evidence proven, again, referring back to Sarah Sanford from that TED Talk.
Yeah.
There's been evidence to show that when the gender box is put before any skills assessment, women who have to answer that do worse on the skills assessment now, because it's been made clear, oh, fuck, I'm a woman and I'm already going in with this handicap. I'm going in with this.
Fuck.
So I'm all for removing the gender box, honestly. Like, who fucking cares if you're male or female?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Unless it's like a legitimate job that requires a penis or a vagina.
Yeah, like, gynecologists.
That matters.
Gynecologists should really be women.
Proctologists.
Yeah.
And then with regard to reviews, when reviewing women, a lot of times they get reviewed less frequently, and their reviews become more about their personality and less about their work attitude and their work ethic. And this is not a firsthand account that I'm portraying or I'm relaying here. This is from reading and stuff, but I actually believe that 100% because I am guilty of that. I'm not that thing directly, but I am guilty of, like, kind of personally in my head, like, reviewing a coworker like, Jesus Christ, she's a little hard-nosed, huh? Instead of being like, wow, she really put those boxes away neatly.
Yeah, like, damn, you're a hard worker. Yeah. Like,
it's always just a little bit more personal than that. And that bothers me because I've caught myself in that. I don't like that at all.
I haven't caught myself in that one, but the one that always catches me is, like, idly forgetting that they go through this stuff. And, like, that's not a good thing. I need to be aware of it. Especially, like, I was retail management for a chunk of time. I didn't think about it then, and that's a big mistake.
Dude, because 50% of the people you were dealing with were human or females.
Yeah, actually, you're not wrong. 50% of them were human.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. Oh shit, no, but yeah.
And one of the biggest things I think actually made the most sense to me was introduce qualitative measures for HR to implement regarding. I don't know what these leverages would look like. I don't know what these buttons would look like, but they have to exist. They have to, because it just doesn't make sense for them not to exist. That we could flip these levers, push these buttons to mitigate our own biases, or at the very least to recognize that we have them. So many people don't even think they have biases, and I'm like,
everyone does.
You just saying that proved to me that you are biased against yourself. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're getting in your own way of your own growth by saying that.
That's like somebody bragging about how humble they are. You're like,
are you though? Yeah. Like, oh, I'm so humble. I just suck my balls. Mr. Humble. Fuck out of here.
Humbles.
But introduce qualitative measures and record them, learn from them, review them regularly, and use the same rigor you use in your marketing strategies and your financial decisions, in your HR decisions.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Hear me out. You were just talking about this anonymous system for hiring. Shouldn't that be how it is presented to whoever is making all the decisions at the top of the company? All right, you have person A, B, C, and D. Person A has exceeded all expectations. They're like no cancellations on their accounts, easy close on contracts. They're doing great. They're making money for the company. B needs a little bit of work. C is also great, and D is wildly underperforming. It should just be that, and you're like, okay, well, clearly candidate A is an asset and candidate C is an asset. Candidate B sounds like they're doing good. What can we do to help them along? Well, we need to talk about candidate D. What's going on there? And then if it's revealed that A, C are women and B and D are men,
so be it.
Okay, actually, I think that's a really genius system, the anonymous piece, because that's similar to the, I'm sorry, what were you saying? Because as soon as you find out now, you know if you're like, oh, well, actually, D's doing pretty good. You know, he's family friend. Like, you look like a douchebag.
If you have anonymous applications too, and you encounter a situation like that yourself, and you're like, oh, well, maybe not her. You have to go, hold on, why not her?
Yeah.
Why not her? Hold on, why not her? Her. Why not her? Oh.
Yeah, then you're like, fuck. This is also going back down to accountability, which we always come back to in most of our topics. This is about holding people in power accountable. If you're sitting there and it's going to be scary, they can just fire you at a drop of the hat. Our worker rights suck, but we got to start picking, like, supporting one another. Hey, we're going to fire this person because I have a straight hair. Sorry, sir, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, hey, you know what? Let's not hire her. Actually, this guy over here applied. She has the better qualifications. Why are we hiring a guy? And like, yeah, it's scary, but we got to start doing that. We got to start treating, at least at the bare minimum, we got to start with Americans. Treat Americans like Americans and treat each other well.
I had an instance a few months ago. It was probably beginning of the year at this point. My boss and I are pretty tight. He actually reminds me a lot of myself as an old man.
Yeah.
I age backwards, by the way, like Benjamin Button. And so when I was a 72-year-old man, he reminds me of what I was like back then.
That's fair.
So there was this old, she doesn't work there anymore, but my old coworker, Frankie, apparently had an issue with my boss, Frankie.
Yeah.
And
damn Frankie.
It was I saying, man, Frankie can't get along with Frankie, and it's a real problem. I just need the Frankies to stop Frankieing it up, and I'm just going to Frankie until Frankie's franked.
Frankies just make problems for Frankies.
But anyway, she was we were in a conversation, the three of us. My boss walked away. Then she goes, "Did you see that?" No. What? The way he just treated me. Like, what are you talking about? I literally said that. Like, what are you talking about? And I was a little like, it was kind of that tone. It was a little louder.
Yeah, like,
I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I was a little combative because I didn't see anything egregious. I legitimately didn't see anything egregious. I was just like, I have no idea. It was like, and she was like, well, the way he talked to me, like he just looked right over me and gave you the wrench and said, you can do that, right? And then I thought about it and I was like,
fuck.
Holy fucking shit, that did happen, actually. That exactly happened. And the way she described it and everything, she was 5'3", give or take. I'm 6'1". It was legitimately easier for him to hand me the wrench. Beyond that, there was no other reason for him to hand it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, actually, on the same note, the missus went to get a new car. She wanted a very specific car that was manual. They don't really do that. So we ended up driving out to do this. Go on this long adventure. We get there. And like right away, a salesperson comes up and automatically goes straight to me. And we were kind of prepped for this. Goes straight to me. And, hey there, sir. How you doing? All right. Looking for a new car today? And I was like, oh, actually, she is. I just drove her here because she doesn't have a car currently. And he was just like, okay,
I don't know
sorry.
how to do this with women.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then like he would talk with her, but then he'd be like, yeah, okay, so take a look at this car. And she's like, I want a Subaru, I want this model, I'm looking at this, I want manual, blah, 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 blah. Literally, she knows more about cars than I do. If you ask me what's wrong with a fucking car, I will make a joke about headlight fluid. Every fucking time. And a flux capacitor.
The neuter valve is sideways, I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't, whatever you call that, it's just not.
Your exhaust tied up, right?
Yeah, you put a potato in.
You gotta have a good knot right there at the end.
Yeah. So, like, I'm useless at this, and consistently throughout the entire experience, this guy would be like, yeah, okay, yeah, so we'll bring the Subaru around, and then he would look to me and be like, so what are you thinking for a horsepower, and are there any kind of upgrades you're looking for? And I'd literally be in my phone, I'd be like, it's not my car. I mean, what do you want, dear? Like, I'm not here, dude. Even when they were signing, he like first put the paperwork to me, and I had to be like, it's so pervasive in those moments, and it's so gross. It's really gross.
That does actually happen quite a lot to me when I go out in public with the old lady too. She's people will look at me to be the one speaking. I usually don't speak to the people in public. I don't have a short fuse or anything. I just kind of don't care to. And people really, really like talking to me. It's not a flex. I don't love it all the time.
You're like, please, please.
They always want to talk about. Yeah, dude, because they always want to talk about the same things. It's like, oh, did you lift the weight or eat it? I'm like, fuck off, man. Like, it's always something along those lines, or it's always something about, like whatever I'm driving that day or whatever the case. It's like there's three things they talk to me about, and I don't want to talk about any of them. And so she is the one that generally will like go up to the hostess,
Yeah.
table for two or whatever the case. And then they're like, oh, you're here.
Yeah.
Certainly, right this way. They almost have to like look at her twice. It's like, I haven't even made eye contact with the hostess yet. I'm just over here minding my own business, taking in the scenery, and I see it all out of the grips, right?
You could have a sign that says fuck off, and they will still go to you first and be like, welcome to Applebee's. How can I help you today?
and that is I mean, it's a little bit of an evolutionary thing. You know, we look to men to be the ones in charge. We generally do. We look for them to be the ones that are more aggressive too. We look for them to be the ones that are saviors. Anyone who thinks that men and women are equal in every single situation, think of a building on fire.
Yeah.
Men are going in. You don't think of women going in for that. And
I have a conspiracy
right?
theory.
Like there are roles, there are biases that maybe are legitimate.
Yeah.
Many of them are not. Most of them are not.
Okay. I'm on this
I would argue
kick.
that most of them are even harmful.
I'm on this kick of like, we understand things, but I think we don't understand things to the right level. So like what you just said, men are going into the burning building first. Why? And I'm thinking, we're expendable. We can produce a lot of kids, but women take time to actually bring life into the world. They're the ones that caretake. If they die, that is a devastating blow to a small tribe or a town or a family. It really fucks with it. But men can go to war and die in the tens of thousands and be replaced. We're like the soldier ants. Bitch, if my pets are in that building, I'm going in.
I'm going in. I get that. I feel that.
I mean, that's very true, yeah. But, like, I think why societally and culturally we expect that is that reason. We're technically expendable, but we built up an ethos around it, making it seem like we're better. Nah.
Yeah, it's a bit of that masculinity thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the disposable male hypothesis exists for a reason, right? It essentially says that only 50% of males who have ever lived have ever reproduced.
Damn.
The other 50% have died. Essentially. And they have died in things like wars and things like rescue missions. For instance, the Titanic is a really good example. The Titanic, only 19% of men survived, 70% of women survived.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example of the disposable male hypothesis. Yeah. Men are shuttling women off because women will contribute to future generations better than men can. Yeah. At least that is the general bias in that regard, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes down, if not all of it, comes down to just the general risk tendency that males tend to have.
Yeah.
But that risk tendency was formed throughout evolution back when we were nomadic hunter-gatherers and all this.
Yeah.
To find new mates, because males can have 10,000 kids. Females can have like a kid a year after reproductive age.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that is just a tendency toward risk, honestly.
Yeah, we're still animals. That's just what it comes down to. And then I guess the fun part in this whole concept is that the gender bias should almost be a layer deeper. There should be like the reverence and respect for the female aspect of everything, yet we don't really do that. And that's fucked up. We should, again, they're equals, we don't treat them as that. That is brutal. Our society raises that way. Now there's toxic masculinity and all sorts of shit that's not healthy wrapped up in that too. So like there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. But I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, if you want to actually track lineage, you go matrilineally. Those are uninterrupted lines. Patrilineal lines, by definition, have to jump hosts every time to the mother.
You know what's interesting, kind of related to that? Richard Reeves points out in his book Of Boys and Men, other words, throughout 95% of human civilization, we have been a polygamous species. But only the males have been polygamous. The females have been having their kids. I think that's partly why I'm not a biologist and probably speaking way out of whack here, but that intuitively kind of makes a lot of sense. when it comes down to tracking everyone's relation down. So like,
Yeah.
I think, and this may be untrue. If it isn't true, we'll put it up here. If it's not true, I'll put it here. All blue-eyed people can be traced back to one woman in Africa.
Oh, I believe that case. It might have was Africa. It might have been.
I think it was
in
Africa.
the north. It might have been Nordic, but I remember something vaguely like that.
Again, if it's wrong, we'll put it here. But yeah. all blue-eyed people can trace their lineage back to one woman. We are all related.
And then again, I think this comes down to like societal stuff. This sounds like early humans before we had tribes and society and whatnot. You have to keep the women safe who take care of the children. They are the future. Therefore, who's next in line? Guys are going to go face whatever's coming at us or dealing with the problem or foregoing food. We came up that way evolutionarily. That absolutely permeates society, but somewhere along the line we got it twisted and started to like look for this power. I'd even argue that like we swapped over to monogamy because it prevents a lot of intersocial tensions and problems. And it just kind of naturally evolved that way because most every human society has leaned towards that in the long run. Usually we just kind of go with what's stable. Make lots of extra food? Stable. Make cool technology? Stable. Not start a blood feud because you impregnated a woman that had a very possessive mate? Well, you know, monogamy sounds stable.
Birth control helps a lot with that. Birth control, actually, I think, this is going to sound really weird, but I think we could do a birth control episode.
I will wear one of those fucking.
I think, like the effects that birth control, the introduction rather of birth control, the effects of it on women in the workforce.
Oh God. Yeah.
And men in the workforce, men in society in general, and fucking marriage and motherhood. Oh my God, dude! Birth control has been one of the most influential things that has affected the face of the workscape in decades.
But then also it's run by men. I will straight up wear one of those period simulators during that and just like straight face it and go through the whole 45-ish minute segment and just, you know, go off randomly. Hell yeah. Just
hey, it's a tax write-off, man.
We'll go for a point and be like, yeah, so I was thinking and as Whisper points out, most studies have been done on men, not women. Like, okay, the groundbreaking study coming out on biases right now is doctors going, wow, it turns out that women are actually experiencing pain when they come in and complain about, like, pain? Wow. That's fucking crazy.
Man. I'm going to get love for this one. My dad told me a blonde joke one time. And it's pretty benign. So a blonde walks into a bar. No, a blonde goes to the doctor. Mm-hmm. And she goes, Doc, I don't know what it is, but everywhere I point on my body, it hurts. Just ow, ow, ow. Doc grabs her hand and goes, how long has your finger been broken?
No.
All right. I'm not going to make this a blonde hour or blonde joke hour, but Jesus Christ, I could. They're already resurfacing up here. Man, that was a fast 45, huh?
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. And
holy shit.
It's a topic that, again, we should interview on.
Dude, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up real quick, huh?
Let's do it.
Thank you to everyone who tuned in. We stream every day, every Thursday, not every
day. God, not yet.
Everyone tuned in. We stream every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. EST. We will see you next week. Be safe out there, people.